Excerpts from The New Shunning, written by D.E. Turnbull, narrated by Hakeem Shabash Uganda. A poet state, WTBTS. We too believe the society. I loved my old religion. It made me, and once when it broke me, it made me again. But a religion that exercises such control over its members' lives usurps the places of God and conscience and deems itself to be more potent and present than both the meaning of a cult. I'm D.E. Turnbull, author of the book False Jehovah Witness and Watchtower Religions. I'm an ex-Jehovah Witness. I was born in 59 years ago, and I was excommunicated 30 years ago. And this is my story. The truth about shunning. When you leave a religion, it's done. But when you leave a cult, you're shunned. On the first day of summer, June 21st, 2018, my daughter Tracy will have been 29. But on April 29th, 2018, Tracy was shot in the back of her head while sitting on a Chicago park bench, shielding her 5-year-old daughter. While Tracy's then 5-year-old daughter survived, the unborn baby did not, and Tracy was pronounced dead on May 16th, 2018. When I was excommunicated from the Jehovah Witness religion 30 years ago, my then wife was a Jehovah Witness, and together we made a poisonous mix, which produced a contentious marriage and a toxic family life. But we pulled our child from opposite ends, and we pulled hard. Although my now ex-wife is a second-generation Jehovah's Witness, and I was a third-generation Jehovah's Witness, our daughter Tracy was never a Jehovah's Witness. Shun room. Not long after we learned from the doctor that Tracy would die, my ex-wife was anxious, but obliged to tell me that while her closest and longtime Jehovah's Witness friends were aware that I was disfellowshipped, her new elder and new Jehovah's Witness friends who were not aware that I was disfellowshipped were not to be engaged in a conversation by me once they arrived at the hospital. My ex-wife then told me, "But you don't have to leave." At that moment, the waiting room took on a different meaning. It became a makeshift kingdom hall for the Jehovah's Witness. But every kingdom hall around the world is a backward waiting room, where the Jehovah's Witness are waiting again for the word from the Watchtower Doctor of Doom to tell them anew when the world will end. The room, the elephant, the sheep, and the dog. Just before my ex-wife's new elder and Jehovah Witness friends arrived at the hospital, I sat on one side, and my ex-wife and her old Jehovah Witness friends squeezed on the other side of the elephant. Once my ex-wife's new elder and Jehovah's Witness friends arrived, although then I had never seen any of them before they would arrive, the scene was a familiar one, a flock of sheep being herded by a sheepdog, Shunpike. While my ex-wife no doubt notified her new elder and Jehovah's Witness friends about my being disfellowshipped and an apostate, she must have told them that I was the one in the waiting room across from the half-glass partition wall in the second chair from the end, because like the Jehovah's Witness were window shopping, they peered me through the glass, and as they stepped into the waiting room, one by one, they hit the ground shunning. I got up, brushed past the sheepdog, and scattered the sheep as I exited off the Watchtower Animal Farm. Shun Holy Communion and the grand Shun Passover. Absent from the herd were my critically brainwashed and dry Jehovah's Witness mother and sister, who eat the Watchtower governing body and drink his blood. And while they did not show up at the hospital, they called my ex-wife to give their condolences to her, but passed over my grandchild and me. Like then, not once have my mother or sister called or come to see my grandchild and me. LDS. Living and dead sacrifices. When my ex-wife asked me about a funeral, I told her that I couldn't care less about having a funeral. And this is what she wanted and needed to hear, to put on a Jehovah's Witness meeting under the pretext of a funeral in the name of our child. Weddings and funerals are where the living and the dead are offered up as sacrifices to that mind and body snatching Watchtower society. Christian sanity shunt the front door that the public almost every time rejects the Watchtower Society's counterfeit insane Christianity, bagged and carried by the Jehovah's Witnesses through the streets and from door to door. Weddings and funerals are where Watchtower dogma is relieved on the public. And while it may seem open-minded and democratic that the Jehovah's Witnesses are now allowed to enter churches for weddings and funerals where they will hear traditional Christianity, that autocratic and clandestine anti-Christian Watchtower Society urges the witnesses to exit either the church before the prayer begins or at the moment of prayer, and through the sermon to shut their ears and under their breaths overpray to that blunder misnomer and temporal Jehovah. Dead silence. The Jehovah's Witness funeral is a mockery and a dishonor. At a Jehovah's Witness funeral or a funeral service conducted by the Jehovah's Witness, you will not hear a word from the deceased mother, nor father, nor husband, nor wife, nor sister, nor brother, nor significant other, nor family, nor best friend, nor childhood friend, nor schoolmate, nor neighbor, nor grandparents, nor son. Nor will you hear a word from a 5-year-old daughter said about her deceased mother. You will only hear some elder, the male chauvinist Watchtower Society sheepdog, Unleashed glib, and lowbrow zealot, dropping Watchtower poppy. Shunning and the Shun Religious Estate Company. That our daughter Tracy was not a Jehovah's Witness and that she never showed interest in being one. The service was not held at the Kingdom Hall, so my ex-wife had to put a Jehovah's Witness funeral at a different paid facility where I refused to attend. Think about that and compare the Jehovah's Witness, the Kingdom's halls to her church members and the churches. The Kingdom Hall facilities that the Jehovah's Witness pay for are even built with their free labor and the donations they regularly tender for the maintenance, utilities, and taxes for their facilities. The Kingdom's halls are hardly used for the Jehovah's Witness or on their behalf. The Jehovah's Witness are under a rulership of the Watchtower landlord as to how the Kingdom halls can be used, because after all, the Watchtower Society is king and the Jehovah's Witness are dumb. Obituary, photo opt-out. That my ex-wife took care of every part of the service. She asked me for the words or a poem, but in the end, her deep-seated program contempt for me as an apostate to her religion caused her to omit my poem from obituary, and with it, any photos of me. My ex-wife's reason for not having my photo in the obituary was that she claimed she could not find a photo of me. She never asked me for one. Now, as regards my poem to our daughter, the reason my ex-wife omitted my poem entitled Epicene was that she stated, and I quote, "The poem is too dark." Epicene. I like to join you, we withered flower. Cherished mother and daughter of ours. Were it not for your child, I would give in and be dead with you instead of live in. So I sent my ex-wife a second poem, My Angel. Remember when I was swinging you high, and then you said, now let me try. You swung yourself high past the bush. Now you're much higher than we could push. Theocratic, mythology, and exegesis. My ex-wife angrily told me that my second poem was my attack on her and her religion. She then said, and I quote, Tracy is not an angel, and she is not in heaven. That's false religion. Every part of the service is the way I want it, as theocratic. The control tower has the Jehovah's Witnesses operating on the misguided notion that the word theocratic is synonymous with the words to a phrase, the truth, what the witnesses call the religion, but theirs is a truer religion as a paragene. Nonetheless, the Jehovah's Witnesses are presented with John 14:6, where Jesus is the truth compared to their religious nickname, the truth. The Jehovah's Witnesses reject the relevance and even the sameness, and that the Watchtower Society removed Jesus as God. The witnesses do not care to know that their the truth phrase was forged from John 14:6 to be a semantic primer that undermined and supplanted Jesus. Fight, flight, or freeze. The silence of the lamb chops. The Watchtower Society has for so long tickled the ears of the Jehovah's Witnesses with fable. The witnesses are so disposed to such that all compatible commentaries on the scriptures frustrate the witnesses when they flight or freeze so as not to expose their delirium, hoping to have given the impression of not dignifying such claims with an answer. Loudmouths, goat telling on the mountain. Now, in the case with those stubborn and know-it-all Jehovah's Witnesses on high shout and fight in defense of Watchtower make-believe, in the end, these Watchtower loudmouths, like the reserved counterparts, retreat into silence, but not before choking honesty and suffocating relevance, leaving critical thinking in critical condition. Cognitive dissonance, sheep walking. The Jehovah's Witnesses' behavior has been described by many as cognitive dissonance, cognitive distortion, cognitive inertia, and even Stockholm Syndrome. I describe the Jehovah's Witnesses' behavior as a result of extrinsic artificial cognition in the incubator of fear. Namely, the Jehovah's Witness is a mind-controlled victim of the fear-fertilizing Watchtower Society. I do not speak as a layman, I speak as an authority, but not as a neurologist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a general practitioner. I speak as one who had artificial cognition syndrome, a then mental and physical captive sheepwalker, overdosed on Watchtower sheeping pills. Regrettably, that the credulous and timid Jehovah's Witnesses accept Watchtower propaganda without question. The witnesses no more scrutinize the confusion in the Tower of Babel's publication than the press that printed it. Cartoons with post-traumatic stress. How else do you explain those animated puppets who pose by their posts? That is, stand at their carts, and when they are asked to defend their faith, they cannot because they get frustrated and stressed thinking about that many failed, vague, and flimsy doctrine. These Jehovah's Witnesses, rather than evangelize, direct the demanding public to the Watchtower Society's website. We should not refer to the Jehovah's Witnesses as evangelists. We should refer to them as evangelists. Out with the old, in with the nuisance, and you have the light to remain silent. That awful tower has too often replaced the Jehovah's Witness doctrines of old light with a new light. The Jehovah's Witnesses are baffled of battle fatigue. While their field service duty of knocking on doors, too often these sheepwalkers have been rudely awakened by doors that knock back. While on the other side of the doors were the embarrassing and burdensome reminders of bygone old light that were said to be true but are now untrue. Once the Jehovah's Witnesses exit the door, they must dose themselves back to sleep on Watchtower sheepy pills in order to complete their required field service tour of duty, so as not to be labeled as lost. The Jehovah's Witnesses, for that brief moment of having been awakened from their slumber, put themselves back to sleep because the new light with the old light, like good cop, bad cop, implicated the witnesses, where the new light is rather of interrogation. Anything the witnesses say can be held against them. Watchcraft, abracadabra, involvat, navi perverse. The acts of the impostors. It is continual classical conditioning of Jehovah's Witnesses, the imposter Christian Watchtower Society who professes to be God's earthly and only channel, firstly alters the scriptures and plagiarizes from the Bible to imply God. The Watchtower Society secondly pairs hijacking and redefining everyday words to imply originality that Jehovah's Witnesses salivate like dogs. But every accounting of the Watchtower Society for the Jehovah's Witnesses is an obedience class. The Watchtower Society raked over the Bible to fix its shunning policy as if it were God. Then, to bolster its narrative, the Watchtower Society fused the non-religious word apostate with the Jehovah antagonist and blurred those lines to make Jehovah antagonist synonymous with the Watchtower defector, thus writing itself into ever-reverence by transposing the glory of God to itself. While at its origin, the word apostate means to stand off or away from. The Watchtower's Bible entrapps society. Frankly, the Witchtower Bible entraps society has misled the Jehovah's Witness to believe that the word apostate means exclusively to stand away from the Watchtower Society. Witness Protection Program and witness tampering by shun force to trauma. While the Watchtower Society keeps the Jehovah's Witnesses thinking that its relentless repetition of the scriptures on shunning is for the Jehovah's Witnesses' protection for salvation, it is not. It is manipulation. The slithering Watchtower Society no more cares for the witnesses' salvation than can a snake throw a human's voice. The Watchtower's Bible badgering on shunning is rather than constant beat, which bashes their minds and brains of its believers, that keeps them besieged to be battered again. Two of the scriptures I recall that the Watchtower Society loved to brandish are from the Bible book of 1 Corinthians, which is the Jehovah's Witnesses' parrot, a last to, without critical afterthought. Reading down for the Watchtower Society's spurious Bible, the New Words Translation, the New World Order Translation, the New World Translation, that filthy shade of gray I quote, "Do not be misled. Bad associations spoil useful habit." 1 Corinthians 15:33. But now I write to you to stop keeping company with anyone called a brother. 1 Corinthians 5:11. No shun intended, and for these, love never failed. While on the other hand, the Jehovah's Witnesses shun ex-Jehovah's Witnesses as bad associations and unrepentant wrongdoers. On the other hand, the Jehovah's Witnesses love and without fail keep company with bad associations and unrepentant wrongdoers. As the Jehovah's Witnesses religion is a haven for unbaptized regular Kingdom Hall attending Jehovah's Witness sympathizers who postpone baptism, some even for decades, to keep practicing their despoiling old ways, so as not to get disfellowshipped and be shunned. Insect. Shun screen. The Watchtower Society shunning policy is a window screen to an open window that traps understandably flies in it. Hypocrite. Waiting to exhale. Surge shun. General warning. One JW sympathizer, as decades-long Kingdom Hall attending and cigarette-smoking unbaptized Jehovah's Witness puffed out a warning to my ex-wife against her association with me. Then for emphysema, exhaled that my ex-wife withdraws and detoxes herself of me. Scientology. Miseducation. The Watchtower Secret Society miseducates the Jehovah's Witnesses on God, humanity, itself, and the afterlife to keep the witnesses feeling that by proximity to it alone can they keep separate from the world and safely pass through the again delayed Armageddon again in these so-called last days. So the Jehovah's Witnesses believe that in order to gain salvation from God, they are obliged to the Watchtower Society. False prophet. The winner of discontent. For over a centennial of only ominous fall, the Watchtower Merchant of Doom has the naive and gullible Jehovah's Witnesses bundled up in the fear of global deadly winter, whereafter the witnesses will be laborers for a millennium, cleaning the earth of destruction and deaths left behind by Armageddon. That after that millennium of labor, the devil will be released on the earth to time indefinite, until God eventually ushers in an eternal climate of global peace. Augurements. Despite the Watchtower Society's padded crack of doom predictions, which fosters the witnesses' discontent, they continue to peddle the Watchtower's past century-old fallen forecast of end of the world. Library, eschatology. The Watchtower Society knows that if it allows the Jehovah's Witnesses to read through its library of lies, that its future prophecies for the end of the world is falsehood and flip-flops. Without the fear of being put to death by God, the Jehovah's Witnesses might develop critical thinking ability to refuse of his products. Lies, lies, lies. The Watchtower Society future is a lie. The present is a lie. And the rest is history. Shuns in the family. With over a year gone by of the senseless drive-by shooting and killing of my daughter and her unborn child, and the orphaning of her 5-year-old daughter, of both my parents and 9 siblings, only my ex-Jehovah's Witness father keeps in contact with my grandbaby and me. I am certain now that my siblings were at the hospital to give support for my ex-wife. But foremost, they were there in hope of seeing me be a cow tower to Watchtower, but that didn't happen. Where it is said, blood is thicker than water, the Jehovah's Witness code is a deadly blood thing. Disownment, Shunning, and the anti-family. One of my unbaptized but Jehovah's Witness sympathizing, sanctimonious, megalomaniacal, simple-minded, and derelict brothers who has not intentionally seen Tracy alive since she was a preteen, who otherwise avoided me, phoned to revile me for my decision not to attend the sham funeral for my daughter. He and the other unshunned heroes, with their herd-grade education, serve up the stomach of the cult. Understandably, these backsliders rather by word immerse themselves in the battle for the beast than by water immerse themselves in the belly of it. Mime and shunishment, drunkards, all cultaholics. As it was with my daughter who lived with me, it is with my granddaughter where her Jehovah's Witness and unbaptized Jehovah's Witness sympathizing family distance themselves from her. Because she lives with me. They do not care to know that she still blames herself for her mother's death by having asked her mother to take her to the park that day, because they are all cultaholics, consumed and drunk with the Jehovah's Witness religion, that cul-de-sac, a destructive and sacrilegious dead end. Jerkers and Warlock. At its website, jw.org, pronounced or under the search engine for the word this fellowship, the Watchtower Society writes, and I quote, loyally uphold Jehovah's judgment, shun unrepentant wrongdoers. The witch shut Covershun and the Django Shun Chain. At the Joker and Warlocks 2018 Camp Concentration Convention, the Watchtower governing body snatcher unleashed his first and only black sheep initiate, Samuel F. Hurd, to bleed out a warning for the Jehovah's Witness to shun ex-members. As a token of his appreciation, Sam Bozo the Clown performed his jangling act. From his mouth he shat, and I quote, "You have a disfellowship grown child. How do you treat them? And then you treat them as disfellowshipped? That's what the Bible says you should do. Think about what you should do." Yes. Once the demons were thrown out of Jehovah's house, they were not permitted back in. That tell you something? Nope, can't come back. Can't spoil the rest. Not gonna let you do it. Jehovah says, out you go, out you stay. Samuel F. Hurd, like my mother, ex-Baptist and apostates to the Baptist religion. And while they shun me as an ex-Jehovah's Witness and an apostate, they are not shunned as ex-Baptists and apostates. Because when you leave a religion, it's done. But when you leave a cult, you're shunned, prisoners of warfare. While on one hand, the Jehovah's Witnesses are openly ordered to shun ex-members, on the other hand, there exists in the innermost unwritten rule, the theocratic warfare rule, a blasphemous and sacrilegious code for God-approved deception. The theocratic warfare rule is when the debauched and oblivious rank-and-file Jehovah's Witnesses who have sold their souls to the devil's society are to appear to be a friend to the outsiders, then alarm and lie to them to promote and protect the Watchtower Society. Mephistopheles, falsification, associate, shun. During those early days when my ex-wife relaxed her shunning on me was associated falsification, that is. Her motive was an ulterior one to keep me from saying a word about her religion, raising the dead. As it was with me, it was with our 5-year-old grandchild who explained to me that her grandmother told her that because her mother was not a Jehovah's Witness, her mother is not an angel and is not in heaven. But if Jehovah likes her mother, then Jehovah will bring her back to life. So our granddaughter must get to know and love Jehovah in order to see her mother again. Our grandchild used to beg me often, "But do you wish that grandma was right about Jehovah so that mommy can come back to me and we can see mommy again?" The evident of absent, not the absent of evident or nothing. is awful. For my granddaughter to have waited in vain for Jehovah to bring her mother back to life, the Jehovah's Witnesses' explanation have proven inferior to my grandchild's deep demand, so she rejects Jehovah as God the Father. And the idea is that my grandchild should conform to Jehovah's Witness belief and accept Jehovah as God, lest she may never see her mother again, only resurrect the body of life, rearing its ugly head. My ex-wife has never been at ease that our daughter and I reared our daughter without Jehovah's Witness belief. So my ex-wife, deployed in Watchtower theocratic warfare, the camouflage of coward, has gone back on her pre-adoption word to me, not to involve our grandchild with her Jehovah's Witness religion. My ex-wife is using her new motherhood to try to seize our grandchild and scrub away that so-called dirty and ugly void of her rearing. Then brainwash her and pull her in, then offer her up to that sex predator and serial suicide killer cult. Watchtower headquarters. As if our grandchild were a willful little Jehovah's Witness sympathizer, the time my ex-wife spends trying to pack our grandchild's head with Watchtower dogmas can be reported to the elders to be turned into the Watchtower headquarters where the older checks its field service track. It is rather out of love and duty to the Watchtower society than out of love for God or out of any spiritual concern for our grandchild that my ex-wife is trying to prepare our grandchild for membership into the cult. Rotten. My grandbaby expressed to me how she doesn't like that poo-poo Jehovah because of him she is still scolded and spanked at that boring Kingdom Hall. My grandbaby did beg me to save her from a rotten Jehovah, rotten Kingdom Hall, and rod-hand grandmother. Full coat press, bear the rod and spoil the child again. On my grandchild's first visit to Kingdom Hall with her grandmother, my grandchild was love-bombed and bribed. But when these failed, my grandchild was spanked because of that Jehovah piece of adult theologic puzzle. As they like, all the words are stay. My granddaughter also told me that with that man on stage at Kingdom Hall, asked the audience, "Why are you mad at Jehovah?" Her hand went up, but then had to be forced down. I asked my granddaughter, "What were you going to say to that man?" My granddaughter said, "I'm mad at Jehovah because he let the devil kill my mama." But grandma forced my hand down and told me to shut up and sit, but she was spanking. Grandma told me that that was not a question to be answered. Sans activity, sans answer, sans peace, sans everything. My ex-wife's reckless religiosity is reminiscent of the recklessness with our daughter when Tracy was about 3. My ex-wife did ask Tracy, and I quote, "Do you want to go to Kingdom Hall with me and get life, or stay with your daddy and die?" Tracy said, "Stay with my daddy and die." Formed the mouth of babe. My grandchild expressed to me that because Jehovah doesn't like her birthday, then he can't like her. And because Jehovah doesn't like fun or unicorns or My Little Ponies, then Jehovah can't like children. And because Jehovah doesn't like Halloween or Easter or Christmas, then she doesn't like Jehovah. When I told my grandchild that Jehovah also doesn't like Mother's Day, her eyes went as wide as her open mouth, and where her mouth was stuck silently open, her eyes shouted the shout. The resurrection. It was at bedtime. It was a few months after the death of her mother when my grandbaby sat up to unriddle that one piece of Jehovah puzzle. My grandbaby cried, "You know what, Daddy? If Jehovah didn't like my mommy to make her an angel, he won't like her to make her a human again."